Hello and welcome to my meditation. My name is Debra Baker and I'm so grateful that you have joined us for this little while. We are going to take a break from our deep healing that we've been doing each week and just appreciate the magic and the wonder that is a human life. Let's get started. So let's begin with our 3 nice deep cleansing breaths. Breathe in, fill up your lungs, and then release it slowly. And now fill up your lungs front and back. So breathing in a little more deeply. Hold it for a moment maybe, and then and now take the deepest breath you've taken all day. Fill up your chest, your back, and your belly. Truly fill it up. Feel your skin expand as you fill up your chest and your back and your belly. Hold it for a moment and then release it really slowly, like you're letting the air out of a tire. And now let's relax our bodies. So draw everything up to the midline. Oh, for fun, let's start with the head and the neck and the shoulders first. So tuck your chin gently. Pull your shoulders up to your ears. And just kind of squinch your facial muscles to your skull. Squeeze it all together for a breath cycle. And then let it go. Oh. Notice how good that feels in your neck. And now your torso. So clench your fists and bring them up to your shoulders. Tuck your arms into your sides. Pull all of your muscles to your rib cage and your belly and just kind of pull it all in and hold it for, pull it in, take a breath cycle. And when you breathe out, let it all relax. And now the pelvis and the tailbone. So pull up your pelvic floor, pull in your glutes, your lower back, pull in your lower torso. And just imagine just kind of giving your whole pelvis a hug. Squeeze it in for a breath cycle. And then let it go. And now your feet, your legs, your ankles, and your feet. So press your legs together, your knees, your lower legs, your ankles, your feet. Just kind of press them all together to the center line. Imagine like kind of squeezing all your muscles in your legs. Raise your kneecaps a little. Squeeze it. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze for a breath cycle. And let it go. Yeah. So I started writing my book this week, and one of the questions that seems to come up so much when I work with clients is kind of like, what is my purpose? Am I fulfilling my purpose? Am I on the right path? And Spirit has been telling me for several years now that the purpose, if there is a quote-unquote purpose to a human experience, is the experience. It is to have that beautiful, wonderful, amazing human experience. And we don't get to decide everything. We don't get to decide what happens outside of us, world events, the personalities of those around us, all of those things. So everything outside of us, we don't get to decide. However, as we decide our own thoughts, words, and actions, we create our experience. So if you've ever, walked out of a, say, a performance and heard one group of people saying, oh, that was a waste of time, and the other, people on the other side of you saying, oh my God, that was amazing. Did you see the artistry? Did you see the, the wonder? And both of them are having their experience. And I'm not saying that you lie to yourself and tell yourself that something is wonderful when it's not. What I'm saying, you get to decide your thoughts, your words, and your actions. And let's not focus on the past at all today. Let's look at where we are right here, right now. And I've done this before, but I find it very helpful because what we are trying to do is be fully present in our human lives and in our human experience. And so it's about the five senses, how we experience the world with our bodies. And it's also about an emotional level. Spirits tell me that they don't have emotions. When they let go of a human experience, everything is fine. So the emotions, we can create emotions for ourselves, and we can also release emotions that we don't want to feel. Sometimes, especially if you've had a significant loss, those emotions just, roll over you, and it feels like you don't have any control over them. And wherever you are, I invite you to just be with it. So we'll just do a quick check-in, deep breath, with our emotions, starting with head, neck, and shoulders. Are you feeling any stress? Are you feeling any concern? Are you feeling any anger, any frustration? And so if you are, I invite you to validate that, but also to look at how are you feeding that? If that is something you don't want to feel, how are you feeding it? How are your thoughts, words, and actions feeding your frustration? So Mercury was coming out of retrograde last week, and I was having some moments where I just seemed like I just kept going to the worst case scenario. And I reminded myself, I'm choosing these thoughts, whether I realize it, admit it to myself or not. I am choosing these thoughts. So when I decided to completely distract myself with something, not trying to talk myself out of what I was fearing or what I was, frustrated about, but just completely distracting myself. And that's kind of what we do with the wonder. So if you are feeling any sort of angst, I invite you to think of something wonderful. Something peaceful. I invite you to think of the most peaceful image that you can. So this color-changing crystal ball on the screen, to me, feels very peaceful. It almost feels like the moon being lit up from within with colors. But I also find pictures of snow falling, or a mountain stream, a sunrise or a sunset, the ocean, like the beach, the waves on the shore. A lot of mine involve water. But just think about the most peaceful image you can think of, and completely imagine yourself there. And you can short circuit the emotions and shift yourself back to the wonder that is a human experience. Another deep breath. And so let's think about our hearts, and if we're feeling any sadness, any sorrow, any disappointment, validate that for yourself. Whatever you're feeling, you are entitled to feel. Nobody gets to tell you that you're not. I mean, they can tell you, but they're not privileged to decide your emotions. Okay? So whatever you're feeling, validate it. And tune into it. And then ask yourself, can I focus on something else? How am I feeding this sorrow? So I knew someone who got a divorce, and it was not what she wanted. And she filled her home with pictures of her ex. So she was feeding her sorrow all the time. And, just everywhere she looked, there he was reminding her of her loss, which is an extreme example, but we do feed our sorrow sometimes. So the answer is to ask our spirit guides and guardian angels to point out to us if we are making ourselves feel worse. Make me aware of it so I can change it. And then let's think about our favorite sounds. One of my favorite sounds is the voices of my grandchildren. I also like to hear the wind. I love to hear the rain. Of course, my husband's voice, and especially his laughter, and everyone in my family. But how can you shift yourself from feeling sad to thinking about what are your favorite sounds? And I'm hoping that the breeze kicks up and you can hear the wind chimes in my window. That's another one of my favorite sounds. And especially one of my favorite sounds is when it has snowed and you open the door to the outside and the quiet. It's just amazing to hear the hush. And now think about if you are feeling fearful in your gut, you're nervous, you're worried. Even good things can cause us worry. My husband was driving home yesterday, and I was looking forward to him coming and everything, but I still was nervous about, he's driving by himself a long way, and I had to not focus on it. I had to not think about what could happen. There is an element of what we think about, we bring about, and I watch people, walking on ice and saying, I'm so afraid I'm going to slip and fall, and then they slip and fall, because that's all they're focusing on is falling rather than focusing on making it safely across the ice. So when we focus on the wonder, he made it home safely and he was happy and it was great. And all the memories you have of things that you've worried about in the past that turned out just fine. And so I invite you to think about what flavors you like, what tastes good. I got to try a new chocolate bar yesterday and it was very good. It was very different because it was unroasted chocolate. But whatever that might be, your favorite beverage, your favorite way to have coffee or tea, your favorite food to have for dinner or dessert. Just think about your mouth and your nose, and when you taste things. A lot of times if my grandchildren say, Nana, taste this, I will say, let me smell it, because the smell is so much a part of our taste. So just think about what your favorite flavors are, and I invite you to have one of them, to taste one of them. Give yourself permission to have things that you love around you and experience them. Now let's focus on the pelvis and extremities and the emotion of shame. Are you feeling any sense of shame right now? And sometimes there's deep, deep shame that we're not even aware that we are feeling. I was raised with so much shame. That was my mother's parenting technique. And I'm sure she didn't realize she was causing me harm. But, you know, it's taken a while to heal, and I'm sure that there are lots of you hearing this who have at least had some childhood shame wanting to be healed, and we'll work on that again in our next meditation. But for now, let's shift from the shame, knowing that it's okay to feel ashamed. We're not wrong, we're not bad for feeling ashamed. It's just either something that somebody projected onto us, or we made a mistake, we slipped up, and we did something that we are now ashamed of. Whatever it is, just let it be okay. Just set it on the shelf and think about your favorite aromas. This meditation is coming out in the autumn, and we've been burning some autumn scented, which means kind of pumpkin, cinnamon, maple, caramel scented candles. And it just brings a mood to it. The sense of smell has a mood to it. And so you can shift your mood by having a fragrance around you. I'll never forget, I was at a department store that had old perfume fragrances still available on their counter, and I took one of those little cards and I sprayed the fragrance that my mother used to wear, and it was like in that split second, there she was. And while I have lots of painful memories of her, I also have good memories. She had the best laugh. And so what smells good to you? Is it being outside after it rains? Is it the fall? You know, the fall leaves just kind of have a fragrance all their own, or maybe when the peonies are blooming in the spring, or the roses later in the spring, the lilacs. Oh my gosh, that is such a sweet aroma to me. And I really wanted to give you the experience of shifting from something that's painful, something you don't want to experience, to something that you do. Because life is magical and wonderful if we focus on those things. And it is hard and difficult if we focus on those things. And I know it sounds simplistic, but there is so much truth to it. There's magic everywhere. I had lost a pair of earrings that my husband gave me a few years ago in April, and they just disappeared, and I looked for them and looked for them, and last week they just showed up, and in some place where I had looked for them many times, and it was like this little glimmer of magic. Here they are. I almost felt like there were little fairies around laughing at me, like, ha ha, here they are. We hid them from you, but you got them back. And so think about the magic, all those wonderful coincidences. Last night my granddaughter and I were driving in a convertible, and there were all these birds over top. And I said to her, oh, I hope none of them poop on us. And seconds later, splat, but it was on the windshield. And we looked at one another, and I said, oh, thank goodness we hadn't rolled up another foot or so, because then it would have been on one of us. And you know, those just little things that a couple weeks ago I was driving with some other grandchildren, and a huge branch fell out of a tree in the neighborhood, and it just missed our car. It was this divine timing that saved us. It could have broken a window. It was, like I said, it was a big branch, which, you know, my concern would be for the granddaughter who was sitting next to that window. And so just think about all the many synchronicities and all the magic and all the wonder that this world has for us. So I from my heart of hearts, I highly invite you, recommend that in this week ahead, you look for the magic. You look for the wonder. Because what we look for is what we experience. And it is just a wonderful, wonderful life. It truly is. We are so, so blessed. So thank you so much for experiencing this with me. So let's have a little experiment this week and just see how much wonder and magic and just beauty and joy we can experience in 1 week's time, because it is there. It's all about looking for it. And I know you'll find it. And so thank you so much for joining me for this little while. And I want to remind you that you are absolutely whole and perfect, exactly as you are, and the one presence moving in, through, and as me honors and recognizes the one presence moving in, through, and as you. In other words, namaste. Have a wonderful week.